have more than a quorum here. So thank you to my fellow commissioners for being so prompt, and thank you to everyone else for joining this virtual call. The reason this meeting is virtual is because the Higher Education Commission is in the process of moving, and in fact, I think did just complete an office move this past Friday. So I think many of the staff team are joining us from their new offices. Congratulations. I know it was a long time coming. We look forward to a tour of the office at some point, and I know that there are also plans in place to figure out exactly how to accommodate in-person commission meetings. But until that date, we will certainly be virtual, and details to follow on that. I would ask that if you're not muted, if you could please mute. I'm just hearing a little bit of feedback. Also, as Dr. Rai mentioned, it is a busy time at MHEC and an exciting time. We have several new staff members who have joined over the past several weeks, and I'll let Dr. Rai introduce them, or at least tell us about them if they're not able to join the meeting. The other thing I wanted to note is that it's certainly a busy season for everybody involved in state government with the legislative session. It is budget season. We're in the beginning of the 90-day legislative session in Annapolis. And so I know a lot of the senior staff that's on this call from the Higher Education Commission has been involved and continues to be involved in budget conversations and conversations with legislators, spending a lot of time in Annapolis. So we thank you for your work there and stand ready to help and provide support and guidance as needed. So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Rai for his remarks.
Thank you, Chair Mars. Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year. And certainly welcome to our first meeting of the Maryland Higher Education Commission for 2025. Our staff at MHEC have been working hard. They have hit the ground running this year, preparing for the start of the legislative session and a move to a new location, among several other items. As of Friday, as Chair Motts mentioned, as of Friday, January 17, MHEC is no longer located in the Nancy S. Grasmick State Education Building. Our offices have relocated to 217 East Redwood Street, 21st floor, Baltimore, Maryland, 21202. Hours of operations are Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m., and all office telephone numbers remain the same as listed on the website mhec.maryland.gov. I wanted to share a good data point to start our meeting today and certainly start our year. As you remember, in 2013, the Maryland legislature established a college attainment goal that at least 55% of Maryland's adults age 25 to 64 will hold at least an associate's degree by the year 2025. Maryland's colleges and universities have contributed greatly to degree production in the state and have exceeded original targets. As of the 2024 reporting year, Maryland institutions have awarded 727,093 undergraduate degrees, exceeding the target by almost 10,000 degrees already. And we have about 2 more years to go. I want to thank all institutions across the state, especially faculty and staff members who helped our students achieve this success. As you know, we hosted a very successful and well-attended Student Success Summit in November. We have continued to work tirelessly to finalize our post-2025 goals. We are still receiving inputs inputs and reflections from our academic institutions. These goals are aimed at eliminating achievement gaps, increasing degree completion, ensuring students earn meaningful credentials, and creating research and innovation-based pathways to success. Our government relations team is hard at work, meeting with legislature, and other stakeholders to inform them and gain their support on these efforts. Additionally, I also want to acknowledge and recognize the academic affairs team for their work in leading the implementation of House Bill 1244, which called for collaboration between state agencies to define, identify, and compile data on state and regional workforce needs to help institutions develop targeted academic programs. Created a program review process advisory council, clarified the distinction between unreasonable and unnecessary duplication, established a report evaluating harm to existing programs at Maryland's historically Black colleges and universities, in addition to several other items. The team met various deadlines and workforce analysis goals to reach this achievement. They will share more on their work later in today's meeting. I also want to acknowledge that Governor Moore shared the FY 2026 budget just last week. We are very happy to learn that it allocates funding for the various segments of higher education, allowing us to fulfill our mission and contribute to state's economy. We are grateful for the $858 million the budget provides to MHAC and other areas of higher education, including community colleges, independent nonprofit institutions of higher education, and student financial assistance programs. In closing, MHAC is committed to our students and will continue to do the necessary work to make Maryland one of the best states in the country for higher education. Again, we extend our sincere thanks to the Moore-Miller administration for their continuing support of our efforts. Together, we continue to strive to provide our students with access to quality education as they prepare to enter a global world. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Rai. I also want to echo thanks to the entire staff that has been working tirelessly across the many different parts of MHAC. There are only 70 employees, and a lot of them are working double and triple duty. So on behalf of all of the commission, thank you to each of you on the MHAC staff team for what you're doing. Dr. Rai, did you want to also just acknowledge your new senior staff members, just so folks get a chance to meet them? I know not all can join the call, but
yes.
Just to tell us about them.
Yeah, let me introduce our new chief of staff, Tiffany Majors. Tiffany, are you here?
Yes.
She was. I saw her. There she is.
Yeah, I saw Tiffany here. And also our deputy secretary, Elena Liwanis.
I think
Elena,
she has a conflict.
No, I saw her in the office.
Oh, okay. Okay. Anyway, if you could just introduce them, just so folks get a chance to.
Yeah. So if she joins later, Elena will be able to introduce herself. Those are the two who are here, and we'll continue to introduce them at future meetings.
Excellent. Well, welcome, Ms. Majors, and welcome to the Deputy Secretary as well. And we're glad to have you on the MHAC team. I know you're already adding value, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So moving on to the agenda, I'm not aware of any public comments. Ms. Ng, are there any public comments?
No, Madam Chair, there are not. Thanks for confirming.
Sure. So the next agenda item is Mr. Jeffrey Newman from the Department of Finance and Administration.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Mr. Secretary. Happy New Year to all of you. This first item is an information item for you. It's regarding the fiscal 2027 Community College Construction Grant Program state and local cost sharing formula. MHAC does administer the state capital funds for the community colleges, and each year we do the cost sharing formula in January for the upcoming fiscal year, not the fiscal year we're entering immediately, but fiscal 2027. So I'd like to hand it over to Dan Schuster, who is our capital finance analyst for him to present the item.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Jeff. Good morning, Madam Chair, Mr. Secretary, members of the Commission. For the record, I'm Dan Schuster, Capital Finance Analyst here at MHEC, and as Jeff just shared, even though probably most people are focused on the FY26 budget process right now as it moves through the Assembly, with this item, we basically, internally anyways, kick off our process for the FY27 cycle. And by sending some information to the community colleges related to what the state share is going to be for any new projects that they are proposing to start in FY27. And as a reminder, as I presented in October, most of these capital projects get funded over the course of several fiscal years. And so this information that I'm presenting today is only relevant for those projects that are beginning in FY27. If projects have funds in previous years, FY26 or before, the relevant state share is whatever it was during the first year those projects were funded. So what happens is we have the colleges send their request to us each July. And those requests have to include commitment letters from the local governments who are paying for their share of the projects. And so in the months between now and then, they are approaching the counties primarily to try to secure their funding. And that's why we had to provide this information now so that they know how much they have to ask for. And the way that it works, again, this is an informational item only. There's nothing for anybody to vote on or decide. And that's because all of this is prescribed in statute. And it is based on what is called the foundation program, which is a number that MSDE calculates for the funding that is provided to K through 12 schools. And what happens is they also calculate the local share, the local amount of the foundation program, and that's calculated based on factors related to wealth, such as income, property values in the county, and so forth. And the way it works then is whatever the difference is between the local amount of the foundation program and the total program, that's what the state covers. And so all we do is we take the state percentage, or the state amount divided by the total, and that gives us the state percentage for the MSDE program number. And that's the same percentage that is used in the upcoming year for our program for community colleges, with a couple of adjustments. And the adjustments are that regional colleges, which again are colleges who are sponsored by more than one county, they automatically get 75% every year through our program. And the statute says that the minimum amount of our program is 50% for the other schools, and the maximum amount is 70%. And so if the MSDE calculation falls outside those parameters, we make the adjustment. So for example, if it comes to 40% state share and the MSDE figures, we adjust that up to 50% to meet the minimum threshold. And so on page 2 of our memo, you can see what the percentages are going to be for FY27 for the 15 community colleges that participate in our program. Again, Baltimore City is a state entity, and so they do not participate in this program because all their projects are 100% funded by the state. And so it's just customary for us to present this information to the commission before we send it to the colleges. But later today, I'll be informing them of these numbers so they can begin their process. And I should say that these aren't really great surprises to anybody. The amounts don't typically change more than 1% or 2% from one year to the next. And so they generally have a good idea, but this just gives them the exact figures. And with that, I will take any questions.
I have a question. Thanks for that presentation. I tried to follow your description of the formula. I'm not sure I succeeded. It seems to me that there might be incentive for the county governments, the local governments, to fund a lower proportion if the state has a range of say 50 to 70%, and the state actually fills whatever the gap is, it looks like there might be incentive for the local governments to pay as little as they can so that it would maximize what comes from the state. I know I must have missed something, so I thought I'd ask.
Well, so basically the way that it works is whatever the project is, say they're building a new building, and let's say that it costs, $100 million to get that building built. And that project is starting in FY27. So what will happen is if that program is approved by the state and that project is funded, the state will prepare to provide $50 million for that project over the course of however long it's going to be to construct it. And the locals should also prepare to spend $50 million. That is the split for that project. And the local share does not have to be covered by the counties. It could be covered by anybody besides the state. Sometimes the schools themselves provide some of the funding. Primarily it comes from the counties, but it doesn't have to. The only requirement is that it is not state funds. The state funds, whatever that percentage is, comes through our program.
So what determined the initial 50%? If the range is 50 to 70, how is it determined that the state's going to provide 50% rather than 55 or 60 or
right? So it's different by the counties, and that's the difference. And so again, it's based on the same calculations essentially that MSDE uses to figure out how much the state should provide for local schools in that county. And so, for example, if that particular county, if you go through the MSDE calculation, and that has that there's going to be 55% of the foundation program is going to be provided by the state, then that same 55% is going to be provided to that community college in that county through our program.
I see. It's formulaic.
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
Dr. Rye?
Thank you, Commissioner Burnham. Great question. And I'll say that it's also in the best interest of the local government to come with their portion of the funding, because this brings significant amount of state support for higher education. Certainly, the projects of this magnitude also create some economy in their local government. I also want to thank Governor Moore. As you hear, this is for FY27. FY26 also almost all the capital projects from community colleges have been funded, and also at the public universities, some really state-of-the-art facilities are coming across our state, and they are providing really 21st century ideal learning environment for our students. We are so proud of this support that comes from the state and what we are able to provide to our students across the state. Right in this one, you will see from Southern Maryland to Prince George's County, all over the state, state is providing this support. And it helps our institution, it helps our local employers, and it helps our students for sure. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dr. Ryan. That was a great question, Commissioner Burnham. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Mr. Schuster.
Thank you.
I think the next item also falls under Mr. Newman in the Department of Finance and Administration, and that is Mr. Al Dorsett from the Office of Student Financial Assistance.
Yes, thank you, Chair Motz. This is an action item for the commission. It's approval of proposed amendments to the COMAR 13B08-2202, the Teaching Fellows for Maryland Scholarship Program. And I'll turn it over to Al to present the item.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. Good morning, Secretary Rye, Chair Motz, and commissions. The Teaching Fellows for Maryland Scholarship Program is open to both full-time and part-time students. Under the current regulations, undergraduate students are considered full-time if they enroll in at least 12 credits and part-time if they enroll in at least 6 credits, but fewer than 12 credits. Graduate students are considered full-time if they enroll in at 9 credits and part-time if they enroll in at least 6 credits, but fewer than 9. While these definitions for full-time and part-time are standard among MHEC scholarship programs, it has prevented some students from having sufficient funds to complete their program and has prevented some from being eligible at all. Given the severe teacher shortage in Maryland and the goal of the scholarship to increase the number of certified teachers in Maryland, the enclosed proposed amendments would alter the definitions to expand eligibility. Under the amended regulations, the definition of full-time and part-time enrollment for graduate students would be based on the institution's own internal policy for classifying graduate students as full-time and part-time. Additionally, the definition for part-time enrollment for undergraduate students would be expanded to include those students enrolled in less than 6 credits to also have them included as part-time. These changes would increase the number of students able to utilize the available funds for the Teaching Fellow Scholarship. So his recommendation is recommended that the commission, 1, approve the publication in the Maryland Registered, the closed proposed regulatory amendments, altering the definitions of full-time and part-time within the Teaching Fellows for Maryland Scholarship Program. And 2, authorizes its assistant attorney generals to make non-substantive edits to the proposed regulations to conform to the stylistic and formatic requirements of AELR and DSD.
Commissioner Agu, and then Commissioner Williams.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Dorsett. Quick question. The Teaching Fellows Program, whatever its last iteration, was it oversubscribed, undersubscribed? Was it just can you give me just a sense of the utilization?
Undersubscribed. We would look at the aspect of it, and when we looked at it utilizing, there were a lot of students that did not meet the requirements because of their enrollment. So looking at what legislation did, moving several boundaries, we looked at what other boundaries were really there, and really looked at the aspect of enrollment. For one, different colleges, especially for graduate students, identify part-time enrollment and full-time enrollment differently at different institutions. One institution could say full-time enrollment is 9 credits. Another institution could say 6 credits. So us identifying 9 credits kind of puts a barrier in front of those students when the institution may have 6 credits as full-time. And then the other aspect really is part-time is part-time. You know, as I talk with my team, when you look at part-time, you look at 3/4 time, half-time, and less than half-time. They all fit within part-time. So if statute is indicating that an individual can be part-time, why are we limiting individuals to say that you have to be enrolled a certain amount of credits when part-time within statute is part-time? You may have an individual doing 3 credits slowly, and do you want to deny that individual who's doing 3 credits to get a certificate or a master's degree from participating in the program that's going to be a teacher? And we want to really welcome them and assist them as much as possible.
No, this makes sense to me, particularly with the underutilization. I just wanted to get that clarification. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Williams, and then our student commissioner.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dorsett, for the proposal and the detail. I just had some additional clarification on the data that you were just referencing. Do you have some specific quantitative data on how many scholarships were used presently, what your anticipated uptick is as a result of these changes, and related, what that means for resources to support any additional utilization?
I don't have that on me right now, but I can definitely provide that to the commission as a follow-up.
Okay, thanks. I'm just trying to get a sense of how much will this help? How big will we go from, X to Y, and what are those figures, and what are and how does it tie into available resources to support additional teachers?
Right. So what I can add to that is there are about 40 students that the system identified as ineligible due to not meeting the required credit. When you look at the scholarship program, which can range anywhere up to really $40,000, looking at that it does pay towards private as well as public institutions. It's a lot of money out there that hasn't been used that really could be used.
Thank you.
I had a similar question to Commissioner Williams, I believe. So I'll withdraw.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, Mr. Dorsett, are you looking for a motion?
Yes, I believe so.
Do we have a motion to approve the regulations that Mr. Dorsett described?
Madam Chair, I move approval.
I second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Any opposition or abstention? All right, thank you. That has been unanimously approved. And Mr. Dorsett, before you leave us, I specifically want to thank you and your team at OSFA, the Office of Student Financial Assistance. Is an incredibly busy time for you, your busiest. And my understanding is the rollout of the federal FAFSA is more smooth from the federal perspective this year. But I know that generates a lot of work for your team to be supplying the state aid. So thank you for all you're doing there. And it looks like Commissioner Agu has a question.
I just want to echo the thanks to Mr. Dorsett, and if Mr. Dorsett can also just kind of keep us updated if the changes in DC, because I expect there to be changes in personnel on some of these projects affects this, please let us know to the extent that we can help mitigate some of that, because we're all watching this in real time. And so I am fearful that some of the changes just from a personnel perspective may hamper some rollouts like the FAFSA. So please keep us updated there if we can be helpful.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. Moving through this agenda quite swiftly today, we move to the Department of Academic Affairs and Dr. Emily Dow. Dr. Dow? I know you checked your audio earlier and it was working. Was Dr. Dow on the call?
I don't see her as signed in.
I think maybe she jumped off.
Yeah, let me, I can go knock on her door.
Okay, she probably maybe didn't think we'd move quite so quickly.
She just got back on.
Yeah, there she is. Dr. Dow, the floor is yours.
All right.
Thank you. I apologize for that hiccup. Suddenly my mic stopped working. So sorry about that. Thank you. Good morning, Chair Mott, Secretary Rye, and Commissioners, and Happy New Year. The first agenda item for Academic Affairs is similarly proposed regulatory changes. These are regulatory changes to COMAR 13D 020107, and it's related to out-of-state institutions operating here in Maryland. Under current regulations, out-of-state institutions operating a physical campus in Maryland are only allowed to offer academic programs that are similar to the programs offered at its main or primary campus. This limits the out-of-state institutions in providing academic programs that may help meet industry needs here in Maryland. So the proposed regulatory change would allow an out-of-state institution to provide a justification for why a proposed program should be offered at its Maryland campus when that or a similar program is not offered at its main or primary campus. Under the proposed changes, the Secretary could approve the academic program offering if the Secretary finds the justification to be sufficient. The proposed program would still be required to meet all MHEC regulatory requirements, and it would still be circulated to other institutions of higher education in Maryland for comment or objection, and the Secretary would still deny any proposed programs that was unreasonably duplicative or otherwise inconsistent with MHEC's statutory and regulatory obligations. The proposed amendments have been approved for legality by MHEC's Assistant Attorney General as required by the Maryland Administrative Procedure Act and are now enclosed in the Commission book for your review and approval. Upon your approval, proposed regulations and regulatory amendments are submitted to the Legislature's Joint Committee on Administrative, Executive, and Legislative Review, after which they are submitted to the Division of State Documents for publication in the Maryland Register. After a public comment period, they may be brought back before the Commission for final adoption. So the recommendation is, it is recommended that the Commission approve for publication in the Maryland Register the enclosed proposed regulatory amendments regarding academic programs at out-of-state institutions operating in Maryland, and authorizes its Assistant Attorneys General to make non-substantive edits to the proposed regulations to conform to the stylistic and formatting requirements of AELR and DSD. I'm happy to answer questions.
Commissioner Ago?
Dr. Dow, thank you for this. Just a quick question, just remind me about process. So if an out-of-state institution proposes to come to Maryland, is the kind of program review process the same? Meaning, is there room for objection, so on and so forth? Like, just remind us of that process for that.
Absolutely. It's not exactly a one-for-one overlap, but it is very close. When a new out-of-state institution wants to operate here in Maryland, we circulate both their operations here in Maryland as well as the academic programs that they seek to offer here in Maryland. There is an opportunity for objections. The threshold for those objections are slightly different than in-state objections, but we typically follow the same process and same standards to which an out-of-state institution would have authority to operate here in Maryland.
And then just one addition there. Assuming, I know we'll talk about the workforce appendix in a segment or two, if X program was from an out-of-state institution was within that workforce appendix, that would go on that kind of different fast track process, but effectively would be taken out of the normal program review process, correct?
It wouldn't be taken out of the normal program review process, but the workforce needs analysis would supplement or add to the proposal as a statewide need.
So let me ask it a different way. So I'll just take cybersecurity. So if we had an out-of-state institution that was proposing a cybersecurity program they offered in the state of Maryland, and with an in-state institution proposing a cybersecurity program, they would be treated roughly the same?
Correct.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Aliotti?
So I have a question. Can you remind me, like, so there are so what I'm thinking of, if there's because something I've noticed is for example, the cybersecurity program in Coppin is very different from the cybersecurity program in Bowie. But we're able to take certain classes that Bowie offers in case it's not offered at Coppin, and they're able to take it. Will students myself or another student who has a cybersecurity major, if they wanted to, would there be interconstitutional agreement that if they're approved, they're able to take classes over there, or is it a separate program?
That is a great question. Those agreements typically depend on the two institutions being able to share registration, course agreements, the like. So it would depend on each institution. Our agency has historically reviewed those MOUs, those agreements. They can either be through transfer agreements, they can be through other documentation that says students can take courses at our institution, and it will count towards their degree requirements at their home institution. So it depends. I think the short answer is it depends on the institution, but we are very supportive of those types of agreements.
No, my question stems from if an out-of-state school is in Maryland, they're not automatically required to allow credits to take credits. So I have to go to that particular school to get that particular cybersecurity degree in that manner with those classes. Okay.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? So Dr. Dell, just to be clear on the process, this has not gone through the public comment phase yet. This is just
Correct.
starting the ball rolling. So if citizens of Maryland, including institutions of higher education in Maryland, had opinions about this, they would have an opportunity to share it before the regulations were approved.
Yes, absolutely. Through the AALR process. Correct.
Can you just explain a little bit about the genesis of this, like why this is coming before us?
Sure. So we have about 17 colleges and universities that are considered out-of-state institutions operating here in Maryland. They run the gamut in terms of their motivation for being in Maryland. Some of them are close nearby. They're DC, Virginia schools that have a physical presence here in Maryland just because of proximity. We have some schools that are very targeted in terms of supporting our military bases here in Maryland. And then we have some schools that are here to offer specialized programming as they do kind of across the nation. Many of those schools, again, we consider them out-of-state institutions because their home campus is somewhere else. We have had inquiries in recent years to say, from those out-of-state institutions that say, they ask us, can we offer program X, even though our home institution does not offer that program? As of right now, our regulations require the home institution, the home location, to offer that program before they can offer the program here in Maryland. That it stems from kind of an old way of doing things in higher ed in terms of resources and faculty and the like. And so this regulatory change allows an out-of-state institution with justification. So they still have to demonstrate they have the right resources. They would have to demonstrate that there is a need here in Maryland for that program. But the requirement of having the program originally at their home campus would not be an immediate barrier to offering that program here in Maryland. So take, for example, nursing. If any one of our out-of-state institutions said, we would like to offer nursing, under our current regulations, we would say, well, are you offering nursing at your home campus? They may or may not. That shouldn't necessarily prohibit them from offering nursing here in Maryland. Again, if they meet all of the standards that we would expect of any program, and if the secretary finds that that is sufficient justification.
Okay, and are there similar regulatory frameworks in other states that allow our Maryland institutions to do the same in other states? Is this one of the reasons we're trying to be a sort of a good neighbor, a good player in the higher ed space?
Yeah, my understanding is particularly our neighboring institutions do not necessarily have this level of a threshold in terms of operation for our Maryland institutions to operate in, say, Virginia, Pennsylvania, and the like.
Okay, thanks for that background. That was helpful.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments from my fellow commissioners? All right, do we have a motion?
I move the adoption of what was just said.
Was there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposition or abstention? All right, unanimously approved. Thank you, Dr. Dow. And I believe the last item on this short agenda today is an update from you, Dr. Dow, on our workforce needs analysis.
Correct. Thank you, Chair Bott. You might all remember the presentation that I provided at the December commission meeting regarding the workforce needs analysis. We have since released a draft of that analysis. It is up on our website and publicly accessible. And along with that, we have a survey out for the public to provide feedback to us. We have, let me share a slide real quick. I just want to provide a few updates. At the December commission meeting, I had shared it was my hope to bring the analysis to you all for adoption at today's meeting. Due to scheduling challenges, noting that the campuses were not necessary, they were on break over the holidays, we have opted to delay the approval to the February commission meeting so that we can make sure we are getting full feedback from all entities, our segmental advisory council, our colleges and universities, and some other specific councils as well. So the draft is currently out for public comment. The survey deadline is February 14th. We're asking two primary questions in that survey: commentary on the methodology of how we've designed those 4 appendices, and then what I call glaring missingness. If there's anything very obviously missing from these lists, giving the public the opportunity to identify that so that we can incorporate it either in this iteration or in preparation for the next iteration. We've recently had public conversations with the Segmental Advisory Council on this work, the Advisory Council on Workforce Needs, and we have a forthcoming meeting with the Program Review Process Advisory Council at the beginning of February. So we are gathering information from those entities. We will incorporate it into a summary analysis for the February commission meeting. And like I said, it is now my hope that we will present a final draft for initial approval at the February commission meeting. I'm happy to answer questions.
Commissioner Howe? And then
I
Commissioner
think that we need to get the missingness word into the Oxford English Dictionary as quickly as possible, because it's certainly one thing that I've never seen, but it's so descriptive. I love it. So that was my comment.
Thanks, Commissioner Howe. Commissioner Agu?
Two quick things. One, just three. One, thank you so much to you and your team for the work. Secondly, can you just, for our friends who are watching, talk about, just really quickly lay out the process for if someone has proposed a program that fits on, that is in this, what exactly happens and is different than the current program review process? I think just saying that out loud, because I know a number of institutions who are watching or maybe not, or will watch this afterward, will want clarity there. And then my last question is, once we approve this, or maybe that should be the first question, once we approve this, is there anything else that has to be done by the legislature, or is this now the standing workforce needs analysis? So one, once we approve it, is this done, at least for this year? And then secondly, just talk about the process for a program that is proposed in these disciplines versus outside.
Great question. Thank you. So I'll take that first one. Yes, once we approve it, I do not believe we need to gain any other review. We have submitted the draft analysis to the Legislative Policy Committee at the General Assembly, so they are aware of this analysis. We have not received any feedback, but I don't expect to receive any feedback at this point. But we can certainly touch base and make sure we check that box. But at this point, it is my understanding, yes, it is commission approval and adoption for this year, for 2025. Process-wise, what this means for program review. I will say this doesn't, I think maybe we have heard from some campuses, does this fast track a program proposal in a particular field? And it will not. We still have regulatory requirements that we still need to circulate proposals. We will still need to do a duplication analysis. But what this information will tell the campuses is we either need more programs in a particular field at a particular education level. So I think that's important, at a particular education level, or campuses need to think about where they are investing their resources and grow their existing programs to meet a particular need or demand. So we will outline that utility of these appendices for those two primary purposes. Do we need to develop more programs, or do we need to expand our current programs? A side note on that, More programs does not necessarily mean more of the same exact program. So again, I come back to the financial manager, financial advising category. We need programs in international finance. We need programs in IT finance. So not just a finance program that is a general finance program. We need to start thinking about specialties. And these analyses provide that kind of detail.
So let me go a step further, which is, so we've been through, at least during my time, 2 or 3 hearings on program review. So if a program I'll always use cybersecurity. It's just because it's the one I'm sure is on the list. A program is proposed in cybersecurity. It goes through our normal program review process. There is an objection. When that comes to us as commission, and now I'm looking for guidance for us, we should, a new part of our analysis in some ways should be, is this program on this list that we have designated and been told the legislature we have to create? And that should factor in, I would argue, substantially into our analysis of whether we approve or reject an objection. Am I correct if I say that?
Yes. Yes. This should become a common piece of information and evidence as we think about need and demand for any particular academic program or occupation or industry.
And would I be wrong if I said that is not enforced, that is put on us by statute from? Correct. Okay. Thank you. So that's helpful guidance for us, and I'm hoping our institutions who are watching or will watch this hear that as we do this. But I know Secretary Rai, I'm sure, will add additional wisdom.
I think, Commissioner Raghu, you just said what I wanted to say. It brings clarity. And also, if you are looking at, let's say, a program X, there could be differing data sets. One data set saying we have need for X. Another may say, well, we don't need X. So now it's not up to the commission staff or to the commission to make that decision. This list that comes from Department of Labor, Commerce, and MHEC's participation, that will be guiding us in that decision-making process. The other thing I'll say that at our segmental meeting, there was some really good discussion, and Dr. Dow, we should take them, and we will take them very seriously. And that was about the emerging areas of our economy. As you know, Commissioner Raghu, very well, that emerging areas are unclear. And trying to bring clarity to something that's evolving, it's hard. So take for example, quantum computing. Where is quantum computing today, and what is it? Well, quantum computing is a combination of mathematics, computer science, and physics. A university or institution may propose a PhD program in quantum computing that's more physics-based. There's a room for that. Another one may bring a more mathematics-based. Another one may be more computing-based, right? So they're all PhD programs in computing. There's no data to say, market needs 10 with this and 15 with this. The race right now is in creating IP in that area. In emerging areas, do we have people who are creating intellectual property in those areas? And then hence startups and other things that gives a competitive edge to higher education and a state's economy at the same time. So that was one discussion. I think we will look at that quite seriously. The other is looking at something like AI, for example. That's an important part, data analysis, AI. It's not just about creating PhD programs in AI. That alone is not going to solve a state's needs. How do we embed AI across all academic programs, across our general education? And thanks to what Commission has done, I think about a few months ago, you have improved the program modification. So now an institution can change 50% of their program without doing any paperwork with Maryland Higher Education Commission. So we are really encouraged that all our institutions have opportunity to align all academic programs with emerging areas, especially areas like AI, data visualization, data analysis, so that our students are more competitive in the job market.
This is really, really helpful. And I think the only maybe guidance that I might give as we think about the program review process going forward, but less us, but more so, as objections are being considered, one thing I would encourage anyone thinking about objecting is I would go to that workforce needs analysis and see if the program that you are objecting to is on that list. That, I'll just say from where I sit, I will speak for myself, that will figure heavily into my analysis of how I think about objections going forward. And hopefully, again, bring some clarity, some streamlining to the process. I know we're not going to a full fast track, but part of the reason that we did this was that we could have a single source of truth for what the state needs economically. So just thank you again, Dr. Dow and your team. And sorry to belabor this, but I thought this is a point of needed clarification as people think about this.
Thank you, Commissioner Agu. If I can add one other piece of information, I think I've said this in the past, but I will say it again here. We are hiring for a director of workforce needs, person who would be dedicated to this work full time. So as soon as we onboard that person, we are starting with interviews shortly. They will be tasked to start to have deep dive conversations with, at a minimum, licensing boards, professional organizations, potentially even unions, to really dig deep around what is the need for a particular occupation or industry. So I'm thrilled that we'll have that expertise on staff as we start to work through what would next be the 2026 version of this analysis. So it will only improve and have additional detail moving forward.
That's great to hear. And I think the one thing I think about in the future, and I don't see Commissioner Williams, but I imagine he may feel similarly, is there will be a desire as the years go on to put everything on that list. There will be a desire. Everything is important. And people never say that their discipline is not important. I think there will be required discipline from all parties involved to make sure that list is truly kind of what is economically indispensable going forward. That's just a thing that I can see as we kind of look in the out years at that. But just again, thank you for all the work. And I look forward to working with that new addition when they arrive.
I can see Commissioner Williams on my screen, and he is nodding in the affirmative, Commissioner Agu. Great conversation. Any other questions or comments for Dr. Dow? Secretary Rye.
Not on this topic. I have said enough, not only here and many other places, about what I feel about emerging areas and how to align our academic programming with what's happening in the real world. Chair Martz, with your permission, I wanted to again introduce our Deputy Secretary. She's here now, Elena Quiroz-Levanis. Elena, can you say hello? I see you signed in here.
Hi, buenos dias. How are you? Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for the introduction. My apologies. We just moved into 217 East Redwood this morning, and I was just walking the rounds to make sure that everything was all set. It's an absolute honor to be here in Maryland, and I'm so thrilled to be joining the incredible folks who are here at Team MHEC under Secretary Rye's leadership. So thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to say hello this morning. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I'll give the floor back to Chair Motz.
Excellent. Thank you so much and welcome. We're thrilled to have you from Massachusetts. We poached the Deputy Secretary, and Secretary Rye did a national search and found Deputy Secretary Quiroz-Levanis, and we're very excited. So welcome to Maryland. I think you've been on the job maybe a month, maybe 6 weeks. So anyway, it's good to have you here. Anything else that anyone else, Dr. Rye or any of our commissioners, want to say before we ask for a motion for adjournment? Well, in my year and a half on the commission, I think this may be our shortest meeting, so things are boding well for 2025. Thank you all for your attention and your succinctness. And do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Say
Aye.
Aye.
I don't see any opposition or abstention, so the ayes have it. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day and stay warm.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day, everyone.